Imagine a moment when your blood boils, your heart races, and all you want is to lash out. What if I told you that ancient philosophers had a revolutionary way to conquer that rage? Picture this: a Stoic sage, calm amidst chaos, mastering his emotions while others around him spiral into fury. How did they do it? They didn't suppress their anger, they transformed it. Instead of a wildfire, they turned it into a tool for clarity. Think about it. What if you could take that intense energy and redirect it toward growth instead of destruction? Stay with me. Let's peel back the layers of anger, revealing the hidden wisdom underneath. Ever felt trapped by your emotions as if they were puppeteering your actions? The Stoics had a powerful technique for reclaiming that control. What if I told you that anger can be a teacher, not just a tormentor? The key lies in understanding its roots and embracing the pause before the reaction. Ready to dive deeper into this ancient practice? Let's explore how the Stoics faced their demons, turning rage into a stepping stone toward wisdom and strength. Keep your mind open, the journey starts now. If you're looking for more emotional balance, clarity in decision-making, and want to learn how to handle life better, this content is for you. So go ahead and leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because with each video you'll grow stronger on the inside and see life with greater wisdom. Nature of anger. When I think about anger, I often find myself reflecting on how deeply ingrained it is in our human nature. The Stoics, with their wisdom, remind us that anger is indeed a natural emotion. It's one of those feelings that can rise up in response to perceived threats or injustices. We've all been there, haven't we? That moment when someone cuts us off in traffic or when a friend lets us down. It's like a switch flips and suddenly, we're engulfed in a wave of frustration. The Stoics would argue that while it's perfectly normal to feel this way, it's also something we should strive to manage, as it can lead us down a path we don't want to tread. For the Stoics, understanding the nature of anger is the first step in handling it effectively. They believed that recognizing anger as a signal rather than a directive is crucial. It's a cue for us to take a step back and assess the situation before we react. I've found that when I acknowledge my anger without judgment, I can better control how I respond to it. It's that initial recognition that can make all the difference. Instead of letting anger dictate my actions, I can choose to pause and reflect. Another important aspect of this understanding is that anger often stems from our expectations. We might expect people to behave in a certain way, and when they don't meet those expectations, we feel anger rising. The Stoics teach us to differentiate between what we can control and what we cannot. By adjusting our expectations and accepting that people will inevitably disappoint us at times, we can lessen the grip that anger has over us. It's a powerful realization that has helped me navigate many frustrating encounters with more grace. Moreover, the Stoics emphasize that anger is a fleeting emotion. Just because we feel it doesn't mean we have to act on it. This distinction is crucial. I've learned to remind myself that feelings come and go, they're temporary states. By embracing this transitory nature of anger, I've found it easier to let go of the intensity and allow myself to respond thoughtfully. It's about recognizing that while anger may feel overwhelming, it's just a part of the human experience. Finally, the Stoic perspective invites us to see anger as an opportunity for growth. Every time I feel anger bubbling up, I try to view it as a chance to learn something about myself. What triggered this emotion? What does it reveal about my values and boundaries? By reframing anger in this way, I can transform it from a destructive force into a stepping stone for personal development. It's about cultivating a mindset that seeks understanding rather than immediate retaliation. Control of emotions. Now, let's talk about control, specifically the control of our emotions. This concept is at the heart of Stoic philosophy. The Stoics believed that while we can't always control what happens to us, we can certainly control how we respond. This is where the practice of self-control comes in. I've learned that developing emotional control is an ongoing journey, not a destination. It requires awareness, practice, and sometimes a good dose of humility. One of the first steps toward gaining control over anger is recognizing its triggers. I've found that by identifying the situations or behaviors that provoke my anger, I can prepare myself better for them. It's like anticipating a storm. If I know it's coming, I can take shelter. The Stoics would encourage this kind of proactive thinking. By understanding what sets off my anger, I can take steps to either avoid those triggers or approach them with a different mindset. Another essential aspect of emotional control is developing a mindful response. The Stoics emphasize the practice of pausing before reacting. This might mean taking a few deep breaths or counting to 10 when I feel anger rising. It's a simple technique, but it creates a vital space between the feeling and the action. During that pause, I can choose a more constructive response rather than giving in to the impulse to lash out. This approach has transformed many of my interactions and has led to healthier relationships. Moreover, practicing emotional control doesn't mean suppressing feelings. It's more about acknowledging them and deciding how to express them appropriately. I remember a time when I felt frustrated with a colleague. Instead of letting that frustration spill over into a sharp comment, I took a moment to gather my thoughts. I approached the conversation with curiosity rather than anger, and it led to a productive dialogue. The Stoics teach us that while we can't eliminate emotions, we can certainly choose how we channel them. Ultimately, gaining control over our emotions is about empowerment. It's about realizing that we hold the reins of our reactions. When I feel anger creeping in, I remind myself that I have the power to choose my response. This realization is liberating, and it aligns perfectly with the Stoic belief that true freedom comes from within. By mastering our emotions, we can navigate life's challenges with grace and resilience. Differentiation between feelings and actions. One of the most enlightening aspects of Stoic philosophy is the distinction between feelings and actions. It's easy to conflate the two, especially when emotions run high. I've found that understanding this separation is a game changer in managing anger. Just because I feel angry doesn't mean I have to act on that anger. This realization has profoundly impacted how I interact with the world around me. The Stoics encourage us to recognize that feelings are natural and often involuntary. They arise in response to our environment, our thoughts, and our beliefs. However, our actions, how we choose to respond to those feelings, are entirely within our control. When I remind myself of this distinction, I gain a sense of agency over my emotional landscape. It's empowering to know that I can feel anger without letting it dictate my behavior. For instance, there have been moments when I felt an intense surge of anger, perhaps due to a disagreement with a friend. In those moments, I used to react impulsively, often leading to regret later. But the Stoic practice of differentiating feelings from actions has allowed me to pause and consider the consequences of my words and deeds. Instead of responding with hostility, I've learned to express my feelings calmly and constructively. Another important aspect of this differentiation is the understanding that feelings are transient. They come and go like waves in the ocean. By acknowledging that anger is just one of many emotions, I can take a step back and assess whether acting on it aligns with my values. This perspective reminds me that I have the power to choose a different path when faced with anger, one that fosters understanding rather than conflict. In essence, the Stoic approach teaches us that our emotions do not define us, our choices do. When I feel anger, I try to view it as an invitation to reflect rather than a mandate to react. This practice has not only improved my emotional resilience but has also deepened my relationships with those around me. By choosing to respond thoughtfully rather than reactively, I can navigate conflicts with more empathy and understanding. Practice of reflection. Reflection is a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, especially when it comes to understanding and managing anger. I've found that taking the time to reflect on my emotions, particularly anger, is essential for personal growth. It's in those quiet moments of introspection that I can unpack the layers of my feelings and gain clarity on what really matters. The Stoics encouraged regular self-examination as a means of understanding ourselves better. I've made it a habit to set aside time each day for reflection. During this practice, I think about the moments that triggered my anger and what I could have done differently. This process isn't about beating myself up, it's about learning and evolving. By understanding the root causes of my anger, I can approach similar situations with a more informed mindset in the future. Moreover, reflection allows me to differentiate between immediate reactions and deeper motivations. Sometimes I've discovered that my anger isn't really about the situation at hand but rather about something unresolved within me. This realization has been eye-opening. The Stoics teach us that our external circumstances often mirror our internal states. By reflecting on my feelings, I can identify patterns and address the underlying issues that fuel my anger. In addition to personal reflection, I've found that journaling can be a powerful tool. Putting my thoughts on paper helps me organize my emotions and gain perspective. When I write about a frustrating encounter, I can often see the situation from multiple angles. This practice aligns with the Stoic belief that understanding the broader context can help dissipate the intensity of our emotions. It's about gaining insight rather than getting lost in the heat of the moment. Ultimately, the practice of reflection fosters a deeper understanding of myself and my reactions. It encourages me to pause and consider the bigger picture rather than getting swept away by my feelings. By making reflection a regular part of my life, I've become more adept at handling anger with grace and wisdom. I'm learning that reflection isn't just a tool for managing emotions, it's a pathway to becoming the best version of myself. Emotional distance. Creating emotional distance is a vital technique in the Stoic toolkit for managing anger. When emotions run high, it's easy to get swept away in the moment, losing sight of rational thought. I've found that by intentionally creating space between my feelings and my responses, I can navigate anger more effectively. This practice has been a game changer for me. One of the first steps in establishing emotional distance is learning to observe my feelings without judgment. Instead of immediately reacting to anger, I try to acknowledge it as a passing cloud rather than a storm that needs to be confronted head-on. This perspective allows me to take a step back and assess what's happening. I've discovered that when I recognize anger as a natural emotional response, it loses some of its power over me. Another technique that has worked wonders for me is visualization. When I feel anger rising, I imagine stepping back from the situation almost as perfection of virtue. As I sit here reflecting on my experiences, it strikes me how much the Stoic philosophy emphasizes virtue as a pathway to overcome anger. It's almost comforting in a way, knowing that when I strive for virtue, I am not merely suppressing my anger but transforming it into something more meaningful. This journey to perfection is not about being flawless. It's about cultivating good character and making choices that align with my values. Each time I find myself on the verge of anger, I remind myself of the importance of my moral compass. The Stoics believe that virtues such as wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance are the foundations of a good life. When I embrace these virtues, I find that my reactions to challenges and injustices soften. Rather than allowing anger to cloud my judgment, I lean into these virtues and ask myself what the wise response would be. This shift in perspective helps me understand that anger can be a signal, a point of reflection rather than a call to action. Instead of allowing my emotions to dictate my behavior, I focus on how I can embody virtue in the face of adversity. An essential aspect of this journey is recognizing that perfection is a process. There will be times when I stumble and let anger get the best of me. But rather than wallowing in guilt, I use those moments as opportunities to return to my values. Each setback is a lesson, nudging me to refine my character further. It's a continuous cycle of learning and growth, where each experience teaches me how to handle my emotions better in the future. Moreover, surrounding myself with virtuous individuals reinforces my commitment to this path. I notice that when I engage with people who prioritize virtue, I am inspired to elevate my own behavior. Their example serves as a reminder of what is possible when we focus on our character rather than our immediate reactions. In those moments of frustration, I think of how I can respond with kindness and understanding instead of anger. Ultimately, the pursuit of virtue is not just a personal journey, it's a communal one. As I strive to be better, I hope to influence those around me positively. By exemplifying virtue, I can help others navigate their feelings of anger and frustration. It's a ripple effect that encourages everyone to take a step back and consider their actions through the lens of virtue. Recognition of impermanence. In the grand tapestry of life, one of the most profound lessons I've learned is the recognition of impermanence. The Stoics teach us that everything we experience, both good and bad, is fleeting. This realization can be incredibly liberating when I find myself engulfed in anger. If I remind myself that the situation causing my anger is temporary, I can breathe a little easier. The frustration I feel today will likely dissipate tomorrow, and holding on to it serves no purpose. Acceptance of impermanence also allows me to put things into perspective. I often find that the things I once raged against, like a rude comment or an unexpected setback, lose their power when viewed through the lens of time. These moments are mere blips in the grand scheme of my life. By acknowledging that nothing lasts forever, I can prioritize my emotional energy toward more meaningful pursuits. Sometimes, when I find myself in a particularly frustrating situation, I practice a mental exercise of visualizing the scenario as a passing cloud. It floats by and then it's gone. This imagery helps me detach from the anger and observe it rather than be consumed by it. I've learned that clinging to anger is akin to holding onto a balloon filled with air. As long as I grip it tightly, it feels heavy. But once I let it go, I can watch it float away, freeing myself from its weight. This understanding of impermanence also extends to my relationships. When I feel anger towards others, I remind myself that they, too, are on their own journey. Their actions, just like mine, are often driven by circumstances that will change. By recognizing that their behavior is not fixed, I can foster compassion instead of resentment. This shift in perception allows me to approach conflicts with an open heart rather than a clenched fist. In practicing this acceptance, I've found a sense of peace that accompanies the understanding that everything is in constant flux. It's a gentle reminder that life is a series of moments, each one unique and valuable in its own right. Embracing this impermanence gives me the freedom to choose how I respond to each moment, allowing me to cultivate a life filled with more understanding and less anger. Empathy and compassion. One of the most transformative practices I've adopted in my efforts to manage anger is the cultivation of empathy and compassion. It's incredible how shifting my perspective to see things from another's point of view can diffuse my anger almost instantly. When I feel that familiar heat rising within me, I consciously ask myself, what might they be going through? This simple question opens the door to understanding and often reveals that the person who triggered my anger is facing their own struggles. Empathy serves as a bridge that connects me to others, reminding me that we are all human and imperfect. When I remind myself that everyone has their battles, I find it easier to approach conflicts with kindness rather than aggression. It's a powerful practice, and the more I engage in it, the more I realize that anger often stems from misunderstanding. By stepping into someone else's shoes, I can see their actions in a new light, which often leads to a more compassionate response. I've also discovered that practicing compassion towards myself plays a crucial role in mitigating anger. It's easy to fall into the trap of self-criticism when I react emotionally, but showing myself the same understanding I extend to others is essential. By acknowledging that I, too, am a work in progress, I can forgive myself for my shortcomings and approach my emotions with gentleness. This self-compassion creates a safe space for growth, allowing me to learn from my experiences without the burden of shame. In moments of conflict, I find that expressing compassion can significantly alter the outcome. When I respond to anger with empathy, whether through a calming voice or an understanding gesture, it often encourages the other person to lower their defenses. This creates an opportunity for dialogue rather than confrontation. The realization that a simple act of kindness can diffuse a tense situation has been invaluable in my interactions with others. Ultimately, the practice of empathy and compassion enriches my life in countless ways. It fosters deeper connections and helps me navigate the complexities of human emotions with grace. By recognizing our shared humanity, I find that anger no longer has a place in my heart. Instead, I embrace understanding, which leads to a more peaceful existence for myself and those around me. Reevaluation of expectations. One of the most eye-opening lessons I've learned on my journey to manage anger is the importance of reevaluating my expectations. So often, I find that my anger arises from unmet expectations, whether it's anticipating how someone should behave or expecting life to unfold in a certain way. By taking a step back and examining these expectations, I can often identify the root cause of my frustration, allowing me to adjust my mindset accordingly. The Stoics teach us that our expectations shape our perceptions of reality. When I set unrealistic standards for myself or others, I am setting the stage for disappointment, which inevitably leads to anger. By understanding that perfection is unattainable, I can learn to embrace the imperfections that exist in both myself and those around me. This shift in mindset has been liberating. The pressure to meet rigid expectations dissipates, paving the way for a more compassionate approach. When faced with a situation that triggers my anger, I take a moment to ask myself, what did I expect? Was it realistic? This self-inquiry helps me recognize when my anger is based on a fantasy rather than reality. By recalibrating my expectations, I can respond with understanding instead of outrage. It's a powerful practice that has transformed my interactions, allowing me to approach challenges with a clearer, more open mind. Moreover, adjusting my expectations does not mean lowering my standards. It means aligning them with reality. I've learned to appreciate the beauty of imperfection and the uniqueness of each situation. By doing so, I create a space where I can appreciate the journey rather than being fixated on the outcome. This perspective shift helps me cultivate patience and resilience, essential qualities for navigating life's ups and downs. Ultimately, the practice of reevaluating expectations has been a game-changer in managing my anger. It encourages me to focus on what truly matters, prioritizing understanding and connection over frustration. By letting go of rigid expectations, I open myself up to the richness of life as it unfolds, messy, unpredictable, and beautifully imperfect. Exercises of gratitude. In my quest to manage anger, I have discovered the transformative power of gratitude. It may sound simplistic, but the practice of gratitude has become an essential tool in my emotional toolkit. When I find myself caught in the grip of anger, taking a moment to reflect on what I am grateful for helps to shift my focus from the negative to the positive. This small act of appreciation has a remarkable ability to change my mindset. By cultivating gratitude, I create a mental space that allows me to see beyond the immediate frustration. Instead of fixating on what angers me, I consciously choose to acknowledge the blessings in my life. It can be as simple as appreciating a warm cup of coffee in the morning or the support of a friend. This practice not only helps to diffuse my anger but also fosters a sense of contentment that can be incredibly grounding. I often keep a gratitude journal where I jot down 3 things I'm grateful for each day. This exercise has become a powerful ritual that reminds me of the abundance in my life. On days when I feel particularly irritable, I can look back at my entries and reconnect with the positive moments that have shaped my experiences. It's a gentle reminder that life is filled with moments of joy, even amidst challenges. Moreover, expressing gratitude towards others. Examination of personal responsibility. When I find myself in a situation that triggers my anger, I often take a step back and ask myself, what is my role in this? It's a challenging question, but one that I believe is vital for personal growth. Instead of pointing fingers at others or blaming external circumstances, the Stoic approach encourages me to reflect on my own actions and reactions. This introspection can be uncomfortable, especially when it reveals that I may have contributed to the problem. However, acknowledging my part in the situation is the first step toward taking control of my emotions. It's fascinating to realize how often we allow our anger to overshadow our judgment. I remember a time when a colleague's offhand comment made me seethe with rage. Rather than confronting him directly, I took a moment to evaluate my feelings. What was it about his comment that struck a nerve? The answer lay in my own insecurities and past experiences. By examining these aspects, I could see that my anger was more about me than it was about him. This revelation helped me to distance myself from the immediate emotional response and respond more rationally. This practice of self-examination isn't just a reactive strategy, it's also preventative. By regularly reflecting on my actions and their potential impact, I can cultivate an awareness that diminishes the likelihood of becoming angry in the first place. I find that the more I engage in this self-scrutiny, the more equipped I am to manage my emotions. It shifts the focus from blame to responsibility, allowing me to take ownership of my emotional landscape. Moreover, this process fosters a sense of empowerment. When I recognize my contribution to a situation, I also realize that I have the power to change it. If I can alter my perceptions and reactions, I am no longer a victim of my emotions. This understanding motivates me to act thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. The Stoic principle of personal responsibility becomes a guiding light, steering me toward a more measured and deliberate way of living. In essence, examining personal responsibility transforms anger from a reflexive, destructive force into an opportunity for growth. By taking accountability for my feelings and actions, I create space for understanding and resolution, reinforcing a more peaceful existence. Focus on what is under our control. In a world full of unpredictability, I often find myself grappling with the concept of control. Stoicism teaches us to distinguish between what we can influence and what is beyond our reach. This principle has become a cornerstone of my emotional management, especially when it comes to anger. When I feel that familiar surge of frustration, I pause to assess the situation. Is this something I can control? More often than not, the answer is no. Understanding this distinction is liberating. There have been countless instances when I've allowed external factors, traffic jams, rude comments, or unexpected changes in plans, to hijack my emotional state. Each time I remind myself that my reaction is the only thing I can truly control, I feel a sense of agency returning. For example, if someone cuts me off in traffic, I have 2 choices. I can let anger boil over, or I can choose to remain calm. The power lies in that choice, and I find comfort in recognizing it. This focus on control not only helps me navigate anger but also fosters a sense of acceptance. By acknowledging that some things are simply out of my hands, I can devote my energy to what truly matters, my response. It shifts my mindset from a reactionary one to a proactive one. Instead of getting caught up in frustrations that I cannot change, I concentrate on my actions, ensuring that they align with my values. Additionally, this principle encourages me to practice mindfulness. When I'm in a heated situation, I remind myself to breathe and recenter. This pause allows me to assess what's within my sphere of influence. It's a small but significant shift that can turn a potentially explosive moment into a calm one. I've found that the more I practice this, the more adept I become at managing my emotions. Ultimately, focusing on what is under my control empowers me to respond to anger with clarity and purpose. It allows me to release the burden of trying to control the uncontrollable and instead invest my energy in cultivating a balanced and measured reaction. Support from the community. One of the most profound realizations I've had in my journey to manage anger is the importance of community. The Stoics emphasize the value of relationships and social support in navigating life's challenges. I've come to understand that I don't have to face my struggles alone. In fact, sharing my experiences with friends or family can significantly alleviate the intensity of my anger. When a frustrating situation arises, I often find solace in discussing it with someone I trust. Talking through my feelings allows me to externalize my anger, which in turn diminishes its intensity. I remember a time when I was upset about a colleague undermining my ideas in a meeting. Instead of letting that resentment fester, I reached out to a friend for advice. Their perspective helped me see the situation in a different light, and I realized that my anger was partially rooted in my own insecurities. Moreover, having a support network provides an emotional buffer. When I feel overwhelmed by anger, knowing that I can lean on others for guidance or simply a listening ear makes a world of difference. This connection fosters a sense of belonging, reminding me that I'm not alone in my struggles. The act of sharing my emotions not only brings relief but also reinforces the bonds I have with those around me. The Stoic idea of community also reminds me of the importance of empathy. When I engage with others and hear their stories, I often find that they too grapple with anger and frustration. This shared experience cultivates compassion and understanding, allowing me to mitigate my anger towards others. Instead of viewing people as adversaries, I begin to see them as fellow travelers on a challenging journey. In essence, the support of my community acts as a vital tool in my emotional toolkit. It reminds me that while I am responsible for my reactions, I am also part of a larger tapestry of human experience. By fostering these connections, I can navigate anger with greater ease and resilience. Use of reason. The application of reason is a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, and it has become an invaluable tool for me in managing anger. When emotions run high, it can be all too easy to let irrational thoughts take over. However, I've learned that stepping back to engage my rational mind can help dismantle the anger before it escalates. It's like having a reliable compass that guides me through turbulent emotional waters. Whenever I feel the heat of anger rising, I remind myself to pause and think critically about the situation. What evidence do I have to support my feelings? Are they based on facts, or are they simply interpretations fueled by emotion? For instance, if I receive critical feedback at work, my initial reaction might be defensiveness. However, applying reason helps me evaluate whether the critique is constructive or merely a personal attack. This clarity allows me to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. Moreover, reason encourages me to challenge negative thought patterns. I often catch myself spiraling into catastrophic thinking, imagining the worst-case scenarios. By actively questioning these thoughts, I disrupt the cycle of anger. Instead of succumbing to the narrative that someone's actions are a personal affront, I can reframe it. Perhaps they're having a bad day, or maybe their behavior has nothing to do with me at all. This shift in perspective softens my anger and opens the door to understanding. Engaging reason also helps me cultivate patience. When faced with anger-inducing situations, I often remind myself that immediate reactions aren't always the best ones. By taking a moment to think through my response, I can choose a course of action that aligns with my values. This practice not only mitigates anger but also fosters a sense of control over my emotional landscape. Ultimately, the use of reason transforms anger from a chaotic force into a manageable experience. By grounding myself in rational thought, I can navigate my emotions with clarity and purpose, allowing me to respond in ways that reflect my true character. Practice of forgiveness. Forgiveness is a powerful concept in Stoic philosophy, and it's something I've worked hard to incorporate into my life. Holding on to anger can be akin to carrying a heavy burden. It weighs me down and clouds my judgment. By practicing forgiveness, I discover a pathway to release that burden and reclaim my peace of mind. It's not about condoning the actions of others but rather about freeing myself from the shackles of resentment. When someone wrongs me, my initial instinct might be to dwell on the hurt. However, I've learned that this only perpetuates my anger and keeps me tethered to negative emotions. Instead, I consciously choose to forgive. This doesn't mean the pain disappears instantly, but it allows me to shift my focus from the offense to my own healing. I've found that forgiveness is as much a gift to myself as it is to the person who wronged me. Moreover, the act of forgiving helps me cultivate compassion. When I think about the reasons behind someone's behavior, I often find that their actions stem from their own struggles. Understanding that we're all imperfect beings navigating life's challenges fosters empathy. This perspective softens my anger and encourages me to let go of grudges. I've experienced moments where, after forgiving someone, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief wash over me. It's a reminder that holding on to anger serves no purpose. Additionally, forgiveness aligns with the Stoic understanding of impermanence. Life is fleeting, and holding on to fury over past grievances feels futile in the grand scheme of things. By choosing to forgive, I embrace the present and all its possibilities. It allows me to move forward without the weight of past resentment anchoring me down. I often remind myself that forgiveness is not just about others. It's also about reclaiming my own happiness. In conclusion, the practice of forgiveness has become an essential aspect of my emotional management. It liberates me from the. As we wrap up today's exploration of how Stoics managed anger, let's take a moment to reflect. Have you ever found yourself in a heated moment, feeling that surge of frustration? What if, instead of reacting impulsively, you paused for just a second? Remember, the Stoics believed that we can't control what happens around us, but we can master our reactions. Imagine facing a challenging situation. Maybe it's a difficult colleague or an unfair circumstance. Instead of letting anger cloud your judgment, what if you responded with clarity and purpose? This is the essence of Stoic wisdom. Now I challenge you, the next time you feel that familiar heat rising, take a deep breath. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Or, how can I respond in a way that aligns with my values? Engaging with your emotions doesn't mean suppressing them, it means understanding them. So, what steps will you take to cultivate that Stoic mindset? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's learn from each other. And remember, every moment of irritation is an opportunity for growth. Keep the Stoic fire alive, and let's continue this journey together.